Yeah, I like to be center screwed.
We know. We know. Okay, well, I guess we should get
I think
moving.
it's lying on the table. I don't know.
You ready to get going here?
Yeah,
Ready.
we're ready. We're ready.
Yeah.
Also, welcome to week 4 of Saturday Shop Tours.
Yay!
Thank you all for joining us every week. It's been a lot of fun. And today we're going to feature my good buddy, Richard Wyatt. He'll talk a little bit about his background and how he got started. But, you know, he's a corporate guy kind of like me in IT. And this is his hobby. And he makes these beautiful wood bowls. And he's going to show us his shop. So, Richard, I'm going to put you center screen here and you can take it away.
All right. Okay, so thank you for that, Carl.
No problem, Richard. Thank you.
Right.
Like to build stuff. So that you know, my background is really started with my father, who's on the line. Really like to tackle anything. So growing up, you know, he would tackle anything that needed doing, from, you know, building sheds to laying carpet to surf down, you know, you name it. And I think for me, I stuff, and one of my in corporate America is that I don't get to build anymore. There was a time when we used to, but so that's kind of gone away. And as that's gone away, having this woodworking has been savior, so I can still sort of create stuff, and get sort of satisfaction that way. So comes from my dad, and then what we've got here, as you can see in the background, before I hand over to the back end of our garage, background, but the back end of our garage, there's I guess it's about a size space. I've been converting, and what I want to show really is that for me, a lot of the fun out of doing this whole thing was actually trying all the different things at the workshop. So, you know, I had to put new windows in. That was a first. That was fun. The third window I put in was better than the first window, although I had my dad's help for that one. Then we fully installed sheet rocks, did the ceiling, and it's all those firsts, all learning to do those things is what I get enjoyment from. So that, let me turn the camera around, hand it over to my beautiful assistant. And I love getting away with calling her that, because in real life I wouldn't dare. All right, so here we go. So let me show you my wood shop. Yep. All right. That would help. So here we are. Oops, here we go. So like I said, this used to be a completely unfinished garage. And you can't quite see it probably, but the rest of the garage is still unfinished. There's just nothing whatsoever, no heating, no cooling. And obviously here in Pennsylvania, in the summer it was too hot and humid to be, and in the winter it was too cold. So I had a short window. So as I said, you know, we put the windows in. They were in such bad shape that you could actually push it with your finger and a pane would fall out. So that wasn't ideal from a security standpoint. And then, as you can see, then we sort of finished the rest of the shop. So we've ceiling insulated and built it out in that way. So what else did we do? Oh yeah, so the other challenge, was the cabinets. So then again, you know, for me the interest was not so much I'm skilled in cabinet making, but I wanted to learn how to do it. So I built the cabinets in here. All from scratch, you know, with the maple fronts on these. I haven't finished the doors on a couple of them, but so I'm still working through that. But I just get enormous pleasure out of making this stuff, as you all do. That's why we're all here, I guess. And the mandatory beer fridge down there in the bottom, which I don't advise with combination with power tools. We'll get to my stop saw story in a second. So, I actually just put in air conditioning. I actually put that in this week, air conditioning and heating. And the interesting challenge I had was that this is a triple garage at least, there's a second story, so all the heat just shoots up there, and obviously, you know, the heat comes in. So I went to the beer store and noticed it had these plastic walk-through walls, you know, the neat lockers. The beer store I saw it. So I bought and installed this. So when I call this actual workshop area, I don't need to cool the whole garage, but yet I can still feed stuff to the table, so I can still come and go. But I keep an area that confines the dust, but also say keeps the heat and cooling. That's probably been the biggest thing I've been doing in the last 12 months, was getting the room ready. And I'm rather proud of my my beer curtain over there on the wall. All right, well, let's go to the
beer curtain.
I call it the beer curtain, but you know. Carl called it the meat locker. I still want to call it the meat curtain. That didn't kind of work for me. So this is the garage piece, and as you can see, I haven't left much room for cars. But first thing I wanted to show was actually, if you come down here, if you wouldn't mind.
Yep.
So this is sort of like the wood rack that I built. If you can see it on the, I don't know which way it shows it. No, it doesn't work if you do that, hon.
Oh.
Yeah. On one side, I keep the flat, so
Oops, sorry.
I keep the plywoods and the flat stuff leaning against the side, and then we've got the shelves for the wood. So this is where I like doing a lot of different woods. I like to do what we call composite, and I'll show you in a minute, but different types of wood, yellow heart, walnut, wenge, maple, teak. So just all different colors and textures of wood. We've got some bits of cedar here. But I keep that, and it's on wheels. So the good thing is that if we want to in the winter, I can just take the whole wood rack, just wheel it into the other part of the workshop and free up the space for a car. So that was kind of the idea behind it. Everything in my workshop's on wheels to give me some flexibility around that. And also, we've noticed that whenever we build a space like this or do an addition, we move within 6 months. So I figured if I'm going to build a workshop, I'm putting it on wheels. So here we go. Come and look at some of the stuff I got in the workshop. So here we've got a belt sander, 42 inch, but belt sander for sanding obviously the edges of things. As you can see, I have completely destroyed that one. So belt sander, very useful. And then air system, which I'll show you in a minute. Got a few slabs of walnut. And I know somebody mentioned they had some walnuts. I'd love to connect with you later. I don't know if you can see that double. We built the big W for my kids' graduations party, so we put that out the front of the house. So that's going to be used in the next couple of months for my daughters who both graduated this time. And then that'll free up some wall space because that can go there. But then we've got the jet bandsaw. Again, I use that quite heavily. Particularly, it's nice when you can round up a piece before you put it on the lathe. I mean, the lathe will round a square piece of wood fairly brutally, but it saves tools and time by being able to use the bandsaw to round it. Then we've got my dust collection, which is new this year. So this is a remote control. It's got a 6-inch or 2 4-inch effect. And what you can almost see behind it, I use some PVC plumbing, so it's kind of wastewater pipe. But I've got a system now across the back of the workshop with a lot of gates, aluminum gates. So when I want to use a machine, it's not as fancy as Carl's. I've actually got to physically open it. But it's been an actual boon for me in the workshop having this system here. It used to be so dusty and unhealthy, and this thing's it's amazing to have this in place and all fully connected up. So that's this part of the workshop. So if we go, then I've got the mandatory, not mandatory, but a stop saw stop with a full extension off to the right there. Again, it's on wheels. And if you don't have a saw stop, I would heavily recommend that you invest in one. And I'll show you why if we go back to the main workshop. Here we go. So let me just show you up on the wall here. For those who don't have, if you don't have a saw stop, when you actually touch this thing when it's moving like I did, this is what they do. They jam this into the blade. It stops in an instant. So this finger is still attached thanks to this little piston here. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I kept that as a reminder not to be so stupid. All right. So where did I get through? So yeah, so this is the other end of the vacuum system, and it's one of my favorite bits. I don't know if you've got this or seen these, but it's just a sweet box. So you know you can use it for my lathe, and I can just brush all that sawdust and it fucks it off the floor from that box. Like that's kind of one of the cool things that I like. A bit weird, but there you go. What else have I got? What do I got? Oh, so back over here then, we've got the drill press. There we go. And this is actually set up with one of those square drill bits, what we call them now, but find that intensely useful for tenons and such like. So standard drill press. The compound miter saw, for me, is really, really important. This is a pretty nice one from Jet. So it's compound, both, you know, you're that way, but also doing the angles. And you can't quite see it in this, and I'll come back to these, but when you do a valve like this with staves, you know, it needs to taper down to the bottom, but it also needs to taper into the center to glue up. So having a solid compound miter saw is kind of critical for people to do that. So that gets a lot of use. Over here, second really key thing for if you want to do work with a lathe is the sharpening system. This is Tormex, the top of the line. This is a cheap copy from Grizzly, but it works pretty much the same. A number of jigs for putting the right angle on the different types of tools, which I'll show you in a second. But this is a really critical, obviously, piece, because you start trying to make stuff, you get a lot of tear outs. It just becomes very difficult and frustrating if your tools are not, super sharp. I mean, you can, if you can't slice a piece of paper with your tool, then it's not going to work. So,
Richard, is that water cooled? Is that what that little orange tray is? Is that for water?
Yeah, you put water in there. Yeah, it keeps it cool. I mean, it's not fancy plumbed in. Yes, it's a tray that keeps the wheel wet.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, that's key piece of kit for me. The other piece I'm going to get to is, well, I got some of the finishes when you finish in wood. I got all sorts of different kinds of finishes. I've got some actually. I don't actually use polyurethane. That's the cabinets. But the main one I use, because I do a lot of bowls, is a food safe mix. I use this thing called walrus oil. So it's good. You can use a salad bowl or whatever. If I use that. Okay, so those things. Sharpness. So then the lathe. This is my pride and joy.
This way.
Actually, if you come around here, Dorothy, I don't mind.
Yeah.
So when I started turning, I started it about I don't know, 3 years ago, and I just bought a benchtop lathe, which was really good. A lot of the bowls I got out I actually made on that benchtop, but I sort of progressed to this Laguna one. It lets me do bigger bowls, and I'll talk about this one in a minute. So I could do an 18-inch wide bowl. When it's set up this way, I can actually spin the head outboard, so I can actually do any size. But the tool rests obviously work here. So the head will spin, and the tail stock here. This is good for if I want to do a spindle holding the end, but also I frequently use it for big bowls like this to hold the center in. It just helps it spin more true. Then we have a number of tools that we can put in the end here, depending on what. depending on what it is you want to turn. So this end, you know, obviously free spins, so that's kind of good if you just want to hold something, or you can have a firmer grip. It's a bit more medieval. So that's really, oh, and this is useful. When you start to core out the center of a bowl, I got a chuck that, you know, it's the opposite of a drill. I put that in there, it stays still, and then I spin the piece, and this then will drive in and core out the beginnings. Then you've got to get in there and do the turning, where the skill comes in, I guess. So that's that end. This end, we've got sorry, can you come right around, honey?
Yeah.
So I've got a variety of different ways to attach it. This one, because this is the middle of a bowl. So this is, just imagine this is a stripe around the middle of a bowl. I'm going to be building up the bottom. There's a curve here, and then we'll have a bit of a top coming up here, and I'll build it up. This one has 7 rows of 91 pieces. So just part of a bowl. So this is like 600 pieces. God knows what it'll be by the time I've finished. So then I've attached it to plywood as sacrificial board. And then you can see the chuck here. So if I turn it on, that clamps on it. There are various different ways I can attach it. So then this forward and reverse, that's very helpful. Come at it from different ways and coming out inside, forward and reverse, and the speeds. The thing to remember with turning is the bigger the piece, the faster it moves on the outside. So if you're doing a spindle, you want to set it at 1,000 RPM because it's quite small, and the angular velocity at the outside is you know, only so much. But when you've got something that's 17, 18 inches in diameter, you know, you've really got to turn it at 400, 450 RPM, and you'll find the edge of the wood is moving, you know, much more rapidly than a spindle in the middle that was doing 1200. But that's the big beast. So this is, I remember, Carl, you were interested in my.
Yes.
You ever want a big spanner? And I had to buy this because I had this attachment, and I couldn't get a wrench that fit. I got a plumber's wrench, but it was too wide. There was just no way, so I had to go and buy this so I could detach this chuck mechanism. But that's quite a beast. I actually borrowed a railway tie thing from Newtown Hardware down the road, but that was too wide. That was about 4 feet long. So there you go. So that's kind of the lathe.
Hey, Richard, that helmet there, yeah, is that?
Well, that's 2 things. So we keep helmets. So obviously this is full face. I keep 2 of these around the shop. But actually, what I forgot, and I do want to show you, is this is, I guess, the top end. Let me put it up.
It's like an alien.
It's well, it's important when you're sanding this stuff down because you get an awful lot of dust. It only works so well. But the bottom line is it sucks the air in the back, and it's got some really good filters in the back, and it then blows the filtered air down the top of the mast. It's covered in.
Oh wow.
So that way, when I'm
I can use my money to go shopping.
standing, protect my lungs, quite frankly.
Do you wear that at the grocery store?
You know what?
And everyone scatters.
You joke, but then I thought, no, I feel guilty.
Good to know.
If I give it to first responders, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work for them. But so that was kind of important to get that. But it's really really important when you're dealing with so much fine dust with the sanding. So put that back. Probably enough time. Yep. So here are the tools really quickly. These are the tools for the lathe. My go-to is it's called a fingernail gouge. So basically, if you haven't seen one of these, but this is spinning. I'm not going to do it because I'm going to have on. You're just balancing and various techniques so you don't, catch it and dig into the wood. But the gouge it will get on the inside.
That's what I want to do it.
For a bowl gouge. then different shapes and scrapers. Again, for getting a flat edge, smooth edge on it. This is for actually gauging how thick the wood is. If you're doing a bigger bowl, you want to make sure that the wood is sort of uniform thickness. And this gauge helps you do that. So that's quite critical. And as I mentioned at the beginning, on the bandsaw, a rough log, it's nice to round them out on the bandsaw. So I have different templates here, depending how big the log was, so I can just use it as a template to cut around. So that's what that is. And then finally, this is what I do. So this is actually the first bowl I ever made, back in 2017, I guess. And for this one, it's because wood moves. So I had to do it rough, and you make it about an inch thick, and you put it aside for 6 months and let it dry, and it totally warps. And then I came back and you sort of this walnut one. I don't know if you can see it very well, but this totally warped. One of my early ones, it wasn't dry enough, and it's what the wood just relaxes and bends. So it's you'll have a lot of patience wood turning. So typically you're going to turn a bowl, leave for at least 6 months, unless you do this composite, which is what I like to do, where you build a bowl up from different pieces, and in that way the stresses are over a smaller piece, and overall they don't move as an entity. So this one I've got yellow heart with sort of walnut in the bottom and then in between the pieces. So that's that bowl. Then if you want to get more fancy, this is Wengi yellow heart. Again, made up of 100 pieces. That was that one. This is one I'm working on right now. I still haven't done the base, but I'm really trying 2 things. One was staining the wood, and then one was, I said, doing the stains in the side. So this is my Tequila Sunrise bars, and I don't want to make any pretense. Learning is trial and error. This is a very ornate bowl I was trying to make. Got purple heart in here, and yellow, and walnut, and one wrong move, and it completely shifted after hours and hours and hours of work.
I've been there.
I don't show. I got a lot of broken pieces. And this one is interesting, which a technique I'm interested in. This is a root ball at my mother-in-law's house, and I filled all the cracks with resin. I don't know if you can see it. And now I'm trying to make a pot out of it with a lovely wood you can see from the root ball, and then the resin filling in the gaps. This is not going to work out. This is my first attempt, and I now know how to do it better. But so the next time I find a root ball, I shall do a better job. But that's kind of an interesting one. But there you go. And I sell my stuff, but I do it through charity. So Homefront do a auction. It's a charity in Trenton, and they do an art show every year. And the charity gets 50%, and you get 50% covers the costs. So last year I started doing that. I think I sold 8 bowls for them, raised a bunch of money for them. So that's kind of what I do. So I don't know if you've got any questions, but this is what keeps me sane.
And me too.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, I have a question. When you started turning, did you take a class, or did you are you self-taught? How did you come about doing it?
Yeah, no, I self-taught, but I did 2 things. One is the internet.
Yeah.
You can learn brain surgery on the internet. It doesn't mean you'll be good at it, and I don't profess that I'm good at this yet, by any stretch of the imagination. So it was that, and then I actually bought a video DVD just to get some basic techniques.
Right.
But it's a lot of trial and error, and I've done a lot of error. So
The nature of woodworking, right? Or making anything. Yeah.
But
Very good.
yeah,
Okay.
no,
Richard, thank you for doing this.
you are welcome. I didn't leave any time for. There you go.
It's perfect timing. So again, guys, if you're following the Facebook page, you'll see the other. I have 4 more Saturdays set up and ready to go. So would love to see you.
Oh, Brian.
Hey,
Good.
Brian.
So have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Carl.
Your parents
Thanks,
are joining
Richard.
us from England.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Richard.
See ya.
Great, thank you.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, Richard.
Yep.
You're welcome. Give you a
Talk to you
call.
later, Richard.
Mm.
You're welcome.